الله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وما أرسلنا من قبلك إلا رجالا نوحي إليهم من أهل القرى أفلم يسيروا في الأرض فينظروا كيف كان عاقبة الذين من قبلهم ولدار الآخرة خير للذين اتقوا أفلا تعقلون صدق الله العظيم. Respected brothers and my dear young friends, as we approach the last final ayats of Surah Yusuf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning a few points to clarify and take away some doubts that people could have. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the whole narrative and the whole story of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. After mentioning the full story, towards the end of Ruku 11, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is then proving his truth and the nubuwwat and the risalat, that indeed I'm a true prophet, and the proof of that is that I have narrated a story to you which happened thousands of years ago, which I was not aware of, neither are you aware of. So how can I get this knowledge of this story? And this proves that I have got it divinely from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which then shows that I am a Nabi, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only does wahi to a Nabi. So he proved his risalat. Then the pagans of Makkah, because they were firm and straight onto their kufr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought ayats that to show them to ponder in the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout the earth and the skies, that show the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the oneness of His, and the tawheed and the oneness of Him. Yet they still didn't believe. Now in these last ayats, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is dispelling some doubts and misconceptions that could possibly serve. And usually these doubts and misconceptions, where do they come from? They generally and usually come from the chiefs and the elite people in the community, the leaders. And then these doubts are driven and pushed into the minds and hearts of the general people. And why are these general people put into confusion, and why are they put into misconceptions? The reason being is that when something, for example, our deen Islam, there's a reality to it, but every person cannot get to the bottom of the reality. And there are certain intelligent people, learned people, who understand the reality of it. They understand the truthfulness of a certain thing. They understand the benefits of acquiring this. They understand the consequences of not acquiring it, etc. But the problem is that they don't want the masses to know this. They don't want the general people to understand the reality. Because they are leaders, because they are chiefs, because they are the so-called elite, they have to stay on top of the hierarchy. So for them to stay on top of the hierarchy, they need followers, they need supporters, they need people who will be ready to die for them. So whenever they see a fear that if the reality comes out in front of these people, then they will leave us, or they will disunite from us and they will go to the other group. Then they create these misconceptions. They create doubts and they spread them amongst the general masses. And it happens even now throughout the world, when there's a false propaganda going on, or there's a false ideology that they want to pass through, then the elites will first mention it, and then there will be opinion polls where they will take opinions of their certain people, and they will say the majority of people, 100,000 people have the same opinion. So now those people who are the general masses, who don't have time to research, who don't have time to read, all they do is read the magazine, the newspaper, they take off what social media gives them, they take off what the TV gives them, they take this. Okay, So that means majority of people are following this group, or the majority of people have this ideology. So they also adopt it. So in the same way, when Rasulullah ﷺ came with Nubuwwat, the chiefs of Makkah, the leaders of Makkah, Quraysh, etc., they saw fear that if Muhammad ﷺ's Nubuwwat and his message comes out and it becomes amongst the masses, then it's such a pure message that everyone's going to turn to him. So if all the general public turn towards Rasulullah ﷺ, what's going to happen to the leaders? They will lose their seats. They will no longer be leaders because you need people to lead upon. You need a population to lead upon. So usually when there is fear of either losing leadership, losing authority, losing your fame, losing your clout, then these people, they create misconceptions. They create doubts into people. And there's stories. Once there's a Sahabi by the name of Tufail ibn Amr al-Dawsi. And he came to Makkah Mukarramah to do tawaf because Makkah was still the center even before Islam. Makkah was the center, the Arabs used to come. So as soon as he came into Makkah Mukarramah, the chiefs of Quraysh, they met him. And when they met him, they started to warn him, يَحْذُرُونَ النَّاسِ. They started to warn him. Hey, listen, that you've come to Makkah, but right now there's a person in Makkah. And فَرَّقَ جَمَاعَتَنَا. He has come out with certain things that because of that, our whole unity has broken up. Father and son have gone two different ways. Mother and daughter, mother and son, mothers on this side and sons on this side, brothers on this side, father, the other brothers on this side. فَرَّقَ جَمَاعَتَنَا وَأَمَّا قَوْلُكَ السِّحْرِ. And when he speaks, it's like black magic. He gets to people's hearts. So stay away from him. Be very careful. Stay away from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So before the person can even listen to Rasulullah, they have already put these misconceptions and they have already filtered through to his mind. Okay, you have to listen to him. Make sure you don't listen to him. Because if you listen to him, he's going to do the same thing in your household. They're going to have problems in your house. Brother and son are going to separate. One is going to go on this side, one is going to go on that side. So as Tufail ibn Amr al-Dawsi, he says that bus I made my mind up that I'm not going to talk to him. I'm not going to listen to him. And he said, when I went to Haram Sharif, when I went to Makkah, when I went to the Kaaba Sharif, hashawtu udhuni, I put cotton wool in my ears. I filled my ears with cotton wool so I can't hear him at all. He said, I went to Makkah Sharif and Rasulullah was there giving targheeb and giving da'wah to somebody. So he says, bus, it just so happened that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted me to hear him. So even though I had cotton wool in my ears, his words penetrated my ears. And when I heard him speak, I knew this is not Jadu. He is talking something. He is talking about something real. So he says, then I followed him. And when I went to his house, I knew this is a person, he's not a shaib, he's not a sahib. And I asked him, what have you got? Rasul gave me the da'wat and the whole da'wat of Islam and deen. Because when I heard him, I made my mind up that Islam is actually the reality. For Aslamtu wa shahidtu shahadat al-haq. Straight away I accepted Islam and I gave witness of the true witness that there is none worthy of worship, peace to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the Prophet. So dekho, misconception before. So anyway, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the last ayat, in his last ayat, he's saying that وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن قَبْلِكَ إِلَّا رِجَالًا نُوحِي إِلَيْهِمْ, that we did not send before you messengers other than men from the people of the towns who we inspired with revelation. أَفَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَيَنْظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الَّذِينَ مِن قَبْلِهِمْ. أَفَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا, have they not traveled in the land where they could see how the fate of those before them was? وَلَدَاءُ الْآخِرُ خَيْرٌ لِلَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا, and surely the abode of the hereafter is much better for those who fear Allah. أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ, would you then still not understand? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from this ayat, He's getting rid of a misconception. And what was the misconception? The misconception that they had gathered was وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن قَبْلِكَ, that we did not send before you a messenger. So what was their misconception? That they were telling people that such a noble act, such a sacred and such a saintly role to play, a Nabi, a deputy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a Nabi sent by Allah, how can it be a human? How can it be a person that eats? How can it be a person that drinks? How can I be a person that sleeps? How can I be a person that goes to a market? How can I be a person that marries and has children? How can this person fulfill the role of a nubuwwat? If Allah was to send a Nabi, He would send an angel. He would send an angel who would be busy in worship, who would be busy in dhikr all day long. And he will call people, okay, bhai, follow me and bring iman. This is, when we see an angel, then this shows nobility. This shows how noble a person is. So how can Allah send a human? So this was the misconception that they were putting in there. Awamun Nas. Muhammad says he's a Nabi. Come on, think. How can a Nabi be a person who has necessities with him? How can a Nabi be a person that has to get married, that has children, that eats like us, that drinks like us, that goes to markets like us, that does business like us? So when they say such things like this, what happens? The simple people straight away think, yeah, it makes sense. How's that true? So they fall for it. And the way they manipulate and the way they say it, the general people fall into it. And now right now, sometimes people that's why it's very important that when we go on YouTube or wherever, we know who we listen to. We know who we are talking to. We know the person who is talking, we know his Aqidah. Because sometimes a person talks and it could possibly be a Shia. And he's talking about deed and he's putting a misconception. And the way he's saying it, you think, yeah, it's true. How can this be possible? And what he did? He has just put misconception in your mind about your own deen. And sadly to say, sometimes we don't even muster the courage to go and ask our local imams or somebody, okay, this person was saying this, what's your take on it? We fall to it. And we become deceived, like the masses become deceived. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is answering this misconception of theirs. Okay? That you are saying that how come Allah didn't send a Nabi? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has many reasons why He sends a human as a Nabi. And sending a human is nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. In fact, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was to send an angel to preach the masses, then what would have happened? The angel would have come. He's got no necessities. He doesn't eat. So if he doesn't eat, does he have to work? He doesn't need to go to earn. He doesn't get tired, so does he have to go to sleep? He doesn't go to sleep. He doesn't have desires. Does he have to get married? He doesn't need to get married. He doesn't have no desires. He doesn't have feelings, so he won't get sad. He won't get angry. He won't have emotions. He doesn't have children, so there's no tarbiyat there. He doesn't have a wife. So this angel comes. Imagine, for argument's sake, they say there should be an angel. And he comes and he sits in the masjid. And all day long, what does he do? He's praying and doing zikr because Quran and zikr is their giza. Just like we need food, this is their food. So all day long, then he calls us. Can you pray namaz like me? You do zikr like me. What would be the human's answer to that? They'll say, how can we pray like you? You don't have necessities like us. You don't have desires like us. You are already in the masjid at Fajr time. You don't have to wake up because you don't go to sleep. We have a clash. We have to wake up. We've got the enjoyment of sleep on one side and we've got to come for namaz. You don't go to work. You've got to go to work and then we have to come for namaz. How can we follow you? Would it be possible to follow? It'd be impossible. A Nabi is sent by Allah as a role model. So when Allah sends somebody as a role model, then for a role model, it's important that the role model is from the same creation or from the same field, from the same profession. Just like a doctor, who will be a role model for a doctor? An engineer. No, another doctor. You will look up to the senior doctors. Who will be a role model for an alim? Another great alim. Who will be a role model for an engineer? Not a mechanic. Because they're in two different fields. Similarly for humans, who will be a role model? We can't have angels to be our role models because they don't share the same necessities as us. They don't share the same feelings as us. They don't share the same emotions. They don't have necessities and needs like us. We have needs stuck with us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that this has always been. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن قَبْلِكَ. We have always said, before you as well, this is our record, that when we have sent a Nabi to guide humans, it has always been a Nabi. It has always been a human. And we don't send angels because they are total different creation. And when they are so total different creation, you can't use them as role models because your life, your nature is totally different. They have no desires in them. They don't sin in them. We have an urge to sin. We have an urge to even do good. They don't have that. So there'll be a conflict. So anyway, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to dispel this misconception that the Ahl Makkah were trying to put to the normal people. How can you follow him as a Nabi? He's a human. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن قَبْلِكَ مِن رَسُولٍ, that we have never sent, that we did not send before you messengers other than men. And from this other than men, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is certainly trying to say that when a Nabi comes, who is he? From humans and from men, not from women. So a very subtle note here that Anbiya are only males. And again, there are reasons for that. Women cannot be Nabis. Yes, the highest rank a woman can get is in wilayat Siddiqiyat. Siddiqiyat. Wa ummu kana Siddiqa. Hazrat Isa salam's regarding his mother Maryam sallallahu ummu Siddiqa. She was a Siddiqa. So that's the highest level that women can reach. Min Ahlil Qura, from the towns, meaning the Nabis were sent from towns and cities, not from villages, not from rural areas. Because usually, again, in this certain note, that people that are from the towns and cities, they usually have a higher sense of intellect. They have more forbearance, they have more understanding. And Nabi, when Allah SWT sends a Nabi as a role model, he has reached the pinnacle in every aspect, in terms of intellect, in terms of strength, in terms of all his moral, in his behavior, in his attitude, in his sabr, in his hilm, everything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala perfects them. That's when they come down as role models. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we have sent men and whom we inspire with revelation. That they are men, but they are not normal men. They are men who are being crowned with nubuwwat. That's why the poet says that Muhammadun Bashar, laysa kal Bashar. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a human, but he's not like the average human. Because sometimes people think that how can a human, and even people, they think you can't call him a Bashar because he's a Nabi. Bashar, human, is bringing him down. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says he's a human, but humans are not all alike. Just like the poet says that وَلَكِنَّهُ يَعْقُوتُ الْيَعْقُوتُ هَجَرٌ لَيْسَ كَالْحَجَرِ. Just like Yaqut is a pearl. It's a ruby. A ruby is a stone. And an average stone is also a stone. The stone you see on the street is also a stone. But that stone is worthless. And a ruby is priceless. So this is worthless, this is priceless. In the same way, humans, Rasulullah is like a ruby. He's the cream of the creation. And the rest of the masses are normal humans. So there's nothing wrong in him being a human. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَفَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَيَنْظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. Have they not traveled in the land where they could have seen how the fate of those before them was? That we sent the Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's given you the full story of Yusuf alayhi salam. He has proved that he's a Nabi. He has shown you and guided you towards Allah's oneness, Tawheed. But yet you are arrogant. You are meant to obey him. You are disobeying. You are meant to follow him. You are going away from him. You are meant to do itaat and you are not doing itaat. So then Allah subhanahu is saying that, have you not seen the fate of those people who were before you? You daily, you monthly, on a yearly basis, you travel from Makkah to Sham, and you travel through. When you go to Sham, you go through all those places where Ad and Thamud lived. And Ad and Thamud was doing the same as you. They had the same attitude and behavior as you. What was their behavior? That they weren't ready to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They weren't ready to believe in the Prophet. They weren't ready to acknowledge his risalat. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them respite. But what happened? The ending was that they were destroyed and they perished. And what's left from them? Just their dwellings are left. Just their homes are left. Just their whole villages are left empty. Nobody there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, have you not seen that? That you are living a life. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling you, he's inviting you towards deen, but you are arrogant and you are not coming towards Islam. You are not accepting Allah's one Allah. You are not accepting Rasul as the Nabi. Then look at what's happened to people that were before you. And this is two ways of calling people towards deen. One is targheeb, where you encourage them towards deen. You give them the fazail, encouragement of namaz. Somebody is not praying namaz, so you give them the fazil of namaz, and you get 27 times more reward. This will happen. You get abundance in your rizq. Allah will become happy with you. You'll become a close friend of Allah. You reach wilayat. So you encourage them, and this could possibly bring him to namaz. But sometimes a person becomes so off the track that encouragement does not work for him. So what do you have to do there? You have to put fear into him. You have to strike fear into him. You have to scare him. And you have to say, look, if you don't pay namaz, this is the wa'id, that you will go in Jannah for this many years. This will happen. If you don't pay zakat, your wealth will turn into a snake. On the day of Qiyamah, it will strangle you, it will eat you. This will happen, X, Y, and Z. So this is called tarheeb. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala initially gave them targheeb. Okay, bring iman, bring iman, bring iman. But when they see that they are not still bringing iman and they are staunch on their misbelief and disobedience, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now tells them that if that's what you're going to stay on, and if that's what you're going to remain on, then go and see what's happened in the past. Because history tells you a lesson. History tells you that if you follow their footsteps, then you will end up in the same way. If they were disobedient to a Nabi, if they did not follow our guidance, if they did not believe in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then go and look at their dwellings. Look at how they have perished. How they were so strong, yet today there's no remains of them. Nothing can be seen. The only thing that's seen is ruins of them. If you carry on like this, then you will also reach that stage where you'll be totally ruined and there'll be nothing left of you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then brings another ayat, وَلَدَّارُ الْآخِرُ خَيْرٌ لِلَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا. That surely the abode of the hereafter is much better for those who fear Allah. But again in this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is getting rid of a misconception. What's the misconception? The chiefs of Makkah, what were they thinking? They were thinking, look, we are the leaders of Makkah. We don't follow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We don't listen to him. We don't obey him. Yet today we're still chiefs. And they have not reached anything. We are disobeying him. We are not following what he's saying. We are not believing what he's saying. Yet we are still rich. In fact, we are increasing in our wealth. We are increasing in children. We are increasing in terms of our family. We are getting stronger. So you're trying to say that if this was a reality, then how come Bilal radhiyallahu is still a slave? How come Ammar ibn Yasir is still a slave? If your deen was the truth, then you should have flourished by now. You should have had blessings in your side. But you're still the same poor people. You're still the people that the masses look down on. And we are still the chiefs. And we are still the leaders. And we have still got money and wealth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again is getting rid of a misconception that وَلَدَّارُ الْآخِرُ خَيْرٌ لِلَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا. That the abode of the hereafter is much better if you fear Allah. That don't think that this world is everything. The results might not even come in this world. Yes, you might live a life of happiness in this world, but there's possibility that afterwards in the hereafter you got doomed forever. And yes, they are believers. They have accepted Islam. They have accepted Iman. They are believing in Allah's oneness. It's possible that they might not see. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises. What does He promise? He promises tranquility. He promises peace. But there is no promise of wealth. That if you accept Islam, you'll become millionaires and billionaires. If you accept Islam, then your children will go throughout the world. You will get leadership. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that don't fall into this misconception by looking at these chiefs of Makkah that look, we are still rich. No. The hereafter is even better. But for who? For those who have taqwa, who believe in our Nabi, who believe in the hereafter, who bring iman on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Do you still not understand that this dunya is fani, is going to finish, is temporary? And you think that this temporary world means everything? The hereafter is eternal. If you lose out in the eternal world, you've lost forever. And if you make gains and if you win in the hereafter, then you have won forever. There is nothing to lose afterwards. And if you lose in the hereafter, then there is no success after that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is engaging the mushriks of Makkah. He is trying to tell them that all these misconceptions that you have, and these misconceptions that have come from the hierarchy, from the elites, and it happens even in our time. It happens where if they want to create a misconception about deen, then it starts from the higher level. It goes into newspapers, it goes into the social media, and there are opinion polls taking place. And then amongst the masses, they start to think, and they start to believe that Islam is this. Islam, in terms of women, is promoting this. Halakha, this is no reality. But the sad thing is, these masses that follow these elite people who have their agendas behind. Why? Because there are certain reasons why they do these things, because they want to stay on top. Although when these people who do propaganda against Islam, they have read the Quran. In fact, they read ahadith, they study. But with what niyat do they study? They study with the niyat to pull out mistakes. That let's see if there's any flaws. And there are no flaws, but they make certain misconceptions. Look, in the Quran, he says this. And sometimes even believers listen to something. Yeah, it's true. That's why it's very important that we don't fall into people's misconceptions. They have a reason why they do this. And the masses, they follow this. The masses don't have time to read about Islam. They don't have time to research about Islam. They are busy on their YouTube magazines. So they read in the magazine that Islam says this, and they don't. And sadly, from our side as well, there's no interaction. We don't interact with the non-Muslims. We don't tell them how beautiful Islam is. So what's their beginning to Islam? Whatever media tells them. What's their first step in Islam? Whatever they see on social media. And then they think that Islam's about this, Islam's about this, Islam's about oppression to women, Islam's about this. I like it. There's nothing like Islam is so just. A person does read Quran, and there are so many stories. Just lately, there was one person in Netherlands. He was in the government, and he was totally against Islam, and he was writing a book about Islam and how the whole thing against Islam. But whilst reading, he thought to himself, wait a minute, this makes sense. Karte, he accepted Islam. The same person who was writing a book against Islam to again put misconceptions in people's mind, it just so happened that Allah gave him tawfiq and he accepted Islam. So in this ayat as well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to dispel so many misconceptions and doubts that the mushriks are putting in the other general people's mind, the simple people's mind, so that they stay away from Islam. Because they fear that if the people go towards Islam, then they will lose their seats, they will lose their leadership. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us correct understanding. Gives us tawfiq to continue reading and listening to those lessons about the Quran. The more we read, the more we understand, the more deeper we get. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts.